What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Logistical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does. Now, today we're going to rag on Biden a whole lot because we've got an election coming up, y'all, and we need to get the word out to let people know that another 4 years of what we've experienced for the past 4 years is not going to be very good for the pocketbook. The economy is bad, and Biden is getting out there telling people, oh, Bidenomics is working, everybody. Everything is just fine. Look at the stock market. Yes, the stock market is doing great. We've seen record numbers from the S&P and NASDAQ, but that doesn't explain why people are still hurting. That doesn't explain why your average everyday person, right? The stock market doesn't affect me. The stock market doesn't affect you. Every day we go to the grocery store and we start crying, sobbing in our freaking hands because we're paying a whole hell of a lot more. Like, inflation has absolutely wrecked the average everyday American's pocketbook, right? Wages haven't come up nearly enough. We experienced for a year of super high inflation. It's just now starting to come down, but it is nowhere near where it needs to be. It's still running roughly 3+%, right? That is in stark contrast to the average inflation rate under Donald Trump was 1.9%, you guys. 1.9%. The lowest, it was like 0.9%, I do believe. That's insane. Of course, that was only for a little short period, but nevertheless, wage growth during Donald Trump's tenure was way better than it is right now, as a matter of fact. And Biden, these people are trying to get out there and tell us that all wages are coming up, y'all. Yeah, sure, they're coming up a little bit, but not nearly enough, and not nearly to counter the effects of inflation. And then you got Biden out there trying to lie, trying to buy votes, trying to lie to the American people by telling us this.
We have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%. We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%.
Oh, people have a right to be concerned. That's what Biden is telling you. And then he's out there, oh, I'm bringing insulin prices down and all this BS. I'm getting rid of the junk fees, which that is about the only good thing President Biden has actually done, is gotten rid of some of those junk fees. But hey, guess what? He didn't get rid of those junk fees. He just knocked them down. He put a cap on those at like $8, I believe. So yeah, good job on that, I guess. That's a win for some people at the very, very bottom of society, people that can't afford to pay for those. Because once you get into that situation where you overdraft your bank account or something like that, you can't afford to pay the fee. Yeah, that's a good thing that Joe Biden done that. Congratulations. Insulin prices, that doesn't affect a whole hell of a lot of people either, like as opposed to the entirety of the nation, as opposed to your average everyday American who is struggling to pay rent, struggling to pay their electricity bills, struggling to buy groceries and gas and just about everything you can freaking think of. And you know, when pressed on the situation, when asked, why is Joe Biden telling people this? We get this.
Jared, why does he keep saying that? You're his top you're the head of the Council of Economic Advisors. Do you ever whisper in his ear, Mr. President, just to be technical about it, it was at 9% when you assumed office, it was 1.4%. It got as high as 9% in 2022. You brought it down from that, but it was never, ever, ever 9% when you came into office. So why does he keep saying it?
Well, first of all, let me point out that in that very quote you played, the president talked about how concerned he was for households struggling with prices that he consistently characterizes as too high.
That's not what I asked you.
So
why does he keep misrepresenting this?
He's making the point that the factors that caused inflation to climb to 9% were in place when he took office.
No,
I think
that's
it was
not what he said. He said it was at 9%. It would eventually get to 9% a little over a year after that. But the fact of the matter is it wasn't 9%. So if I can't trust him quoting data in real time, why should I believe what he's talking about now?
So the annual growth in core inflation in the second quarter of 21 was in fact about 9%. And his point about inflation down 60% off its peak is very much the case. So
no,
look,
it wasn't. It was not at that. So you're almost as bad as he is. Why can't you just say it was high? It got as high as 9%. You'd be accurate in saying that. And we have now brought it down, and we're struggling in around the 3% area. But it's better than it was. But instead, to hang it on his predecessor, that you inherited something that was through the roof when we were in the middle of COVID. It just seems to the American people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're lying. Neil. You're just lying.
Well, hold on. I hear you. The president was making the point that I think is unequivocally true. The factors that took inflation to 9% were in place when he took office.
That is not what he said, Jared. And you're a very smart guy with this stuff. You could just whisper. And he's a good friend of yours. Obviously, thinks the world of you. Many others do as well. You could have just told him, Chief, I got to tell you, Mr. President, whatever you say, you might even, in fact, call him Joe. That's how close you are. And say, sir, it was not 9%. Stop it with the 9%, because the more you say that, the more people don't believe what you're saying.
Look, I think what the American people care most about is the fact
truth.
that inflation.
The American people care about truth, Jared.
Hold on, Neil. Neil, this only works if you let me talk, okay?
You haven't answered my question. I've asked it 5 times, five ways.
The president was making the point that the factors that caused inflation were in place when he took office, and that's unequivocally true.
Okay, so once again, the Biden administration is coming out trying to lie to us. Though the factors were in place when he came into office. Really? So it took months on end, as a matter of fact, toward the end of 21, for inflation to get as high as it was, to get to that 9%. That's almost a year. So that is plenty of time for you to get all of your administration into action to prevent inflation. Do you guys remember the Putin price hike? Yeah, that's what they were trying to blame inflation on. They were blaming high gas prices, and inflation was Putin's price hike because he decided to invade Ukraine. We all thought that was absolute BS. And guess what? It was absolute BS. Janet Yellen got on national television, was trying to tell us, oh, this is just transitory. It's just going to be here for a little while, and then it's going to go. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course inflation's going to come up and then come back down. But if those factors were really in place, if this was true as to what you were saying, how come the Fed didn't raise rates to try to counter inflation spiking toward 9%? How come Janet Yellen didn't do anything? How come Secretary Buttigieg didn't come off of his maternity leave, because we all know men can get pregnant, right? How come he didn't come off of maternity leave and see that there was a supply chain problem going on? How come he didn't come out and try to stop the inflation from coming up? We saw absolutely nothing from these people. They didn't react to inflation freaking skyrocketing through the freaking roof. They didn't do nothing. So were those factors really in place? Or were they just seriously incompetent and couldn't see this coming whatsoever, even though all the economists were out there saying, hey, we're looking at a recession, we're looking at this is looking bad, the economy's starting to tank, blah, 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 blah. We saw all this coming. How come the Biden administration didn't do anything about it? That's because these people are incompetent. They don't care about you. They don't care about the economy. They just care about retaining power. So you would think that to retain that power, you have to be looked upon favorably because the American people vote you into power. But as I showed the other day in the shadow campaign, yeah, that's not the case with Democrats anymore. That's why we're seeing insane policies being implemented by the Biden administration. That's why we're seeing a rogue administration getting out there, not caring about oversight as I've covered several times, and I've shown that, go check those videos out, they don't care about these things. They don't care about the Supreme Court. They want to give women's right to murder people when we're in a replacement crisis, for goodness sakes. We are coming in at below replacement. That means we are going to have the same problem that Japan is facing right now, the same problem that China is facing right now. Too many old people and not enough young people, right? Social Security works by having the younger people pay for the older people to retire. That's essentially how that goes. And if we're not replacing our younger people with new people, if we are allowing our people to murder their babies before they're even born, how the hell do we expect Social Security to remain? How do we expect it not to become dissolvent by 2033, which is what they're expecting? These people are insane. And these excuses are coming from the same guy that couldn't explain the difference between inflation and why we're printing money.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Yeah, so when I first saw that, I thought that was some sort of parody of The Office, but no. That guy is an actual economic advisor to Joe Biden. Can't explain why we tax people, for God's sakes. Why do we even have taxes if we can just print the money, right? Just about every idiot, right? Like, I'm not some smart guy. I'm not some economist person. I didn't go to college for economics. As a matter of fact, I failed economics in high school, but I've taught myself since getting into politics that economics is a main political factor as far as politics goes. So I have taught myself a lot about economics, and I can tell you that all this printing of money devalues our dollar, which is going to cause inflation to go up, right? Because now it costs more to do everything because the value of the dollar is a whole lot less. But you can't get these people to understand this for some reason. They just sit there, oh, well, I don't know why we print dollars like that and why we tax people. Like, this dude, seriously, this is just outright complete nuts, y'all. Like, I know I say that a lot, but my mind keeps getting blown day after day after day, reading these news stories after news story after news story about the sheer incompetence of the Biden administration, y'all. It is absolutely mind-blowing, and it's like people still want to vote for Biden. Oh my God, are you serious? We need to get these people to pay a little bit of attention, something, because I can't see how any sane person would vote for more of this.
I take your point, and we can have we can go on all day back and forth on this. I think what matters today is, are we making progress on lowering costs as well as lowering inflation? You know, they're not the same thing. Lowering both inflation and costs on behalf of the American people. I think we saw a great CPI report yesterday in that regard, but that's just one data point. No victory laps, no getting too far over the skis there.
So you think the trend is your friend, and other economists agree with you that it looks like it could be, and the Federal Reserve might have some flexibility to cut rates.
Correct.
I had a guest on, you might have heard earlier, Jared, who was saying that would be a mistake. It would be a little too soon to start cutting rates. How do you feel about that?
I'm not going to talk about Federal Reserve monetary policy in that regard. What I will say is that the Fed and Jerome Powell has consistently said he needs to have more faith in his forecast, and I suspect he's not the only one. I think a report like yesterday's on the CPA is a data point that helps in that regard, but we'll have to listen to the Fed on that point.
Just more blah, 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 blah coming from the top economic advisor to Joe Biden. This guy is completely incompetent. He doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. He's trying to go on some victory lap here while saying, we're not on a victory lap, y'all. Some of the numbers are coming back up. But that doesn't take into account the years of high inflation, the years of gas prices being high, and these prices being up and wages not coming up to match those. We are still paying an offset as to what we were under Donald Trump. Things were way better under Donald Trump. And I don't understand how these people are trying to lie their way around this. You can't lie your way around numbers, and that seems to be the main thing that the Biden administration loves to do. They love to lie. They even got into calling the economy of Bidenomics as if it's some sort of win for them. Right? Like, Bidenomics is one of the worst things that you could come up, like one of the worst strategies that Biden has ever came up with, right? Like calling our economy Bidenomics and then trying to say it's working. Yeah, you're not really explaining that to the people of America, right? People need to wake up and pay attention to this, because Bidenomics is not a good thing, y'all. It's not a very good thing at all. We've seen that. The consumer price index is way too high right now, and the industrial production rate is nowhere where it needs to be. That means all the numbers are being set up for stagflation. You know what that means? High inflation and no economic growth whatsoever. That means more of what we've been seeing for the past 3 years. And that means you're going to continue to go to the grocery store and cry every time you go to check out, because prices ain't going to come down. Yeah, that's out of the freaking question, right? Like, yeah, asking the grocery stores to lower their freaking prices. Yeah, freaking right. And wages aren't going to come up if the industrial base isn't doing better, right? And they're not trying to bring back any jobs. They're not trying to boom our economy. They're just trying to get more pieces of paper, as I explained in the Shadow Campaign video. They just want more pieces of paper to remain in power. But guess what? I don't think it's going to happen. This dude is failing. He cannot, absolutely cannot remain in power. It would be disastrous. But we will see what the voters think come November, and we will see what's going to happen to our economy and to our average everyday lives. But I think that's all I've got for this one, y'all. I want to thank everybody for watching. And hey, look, y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Is Bidenomics working? Or is it working? It's just not a positive thing. It's actually destroying our economy. Let me know what you think down in the comments. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.